she remarked. "If you don't take my friends to the concert, I'll just go with my ex instead." I tossed her the extra key and replied, "Enjoy." Hours later, she was urgently calling me from a tow yard. It started, as these scenarios usually do, with a straightforward request that was really a command disguised in a polite tone. "I own a garage that focuses on restoring classic cars. It's more than just work, it's my passion and life's mission. Last Saturday, I was entrenched in the most important stage of a project, a complete restoration of a 1969 Charger for a client who was paying a considerable sum for excellence. The engine was on a stand, and the wiring harness sprawled out like a complex nervous system. Plus, I had a deadline looming. This was not a weekend for distractions. My girlfriend of 2 years, Chloe, was aware of this. She had known about the Charger project for months. Yet, she strolled into the garage with her 2 friends, Tiffany and Jessica, in tow. They were all dressed for a concert downtown, an event I had informed her weeks ago that I wouldn't be able to attend due to my work commitments. "Hey," she said, her tone a bit too cheerful. "We're ready to go. The opening act starts in an hour." I wiped the grease from my hands with a rag and looked at her. "Chloe, we discussed this. I can't leave the shop. I'm at a critical point with the engine timing. If I stop now, I lose an entire day." Her smile faded. Her friends shifted behind her, their expressions a mix of impatience and sympathy, a look I was starting to recognize. "Mark, you promised you would find a way," she said. "How are we supposed to get there? A rideshare will cost a fortune." I calmly replied, "I never made that promise. I said I couldn't go, and you should arrange a ride with your friends. I assumed one of them would drive." Tiffany chimed in. "None of us want to deal with parking downtown. It's a nightmare. You have the big truck. It would be so much easier." They wanted me to abandon my work, tied to my livelihood, to act as a free taxi service just to avoid the hassle of parking. The entitlement was palpable. I stood firm. "I'm sorry, but that's not possible. You will need to find another way." At that moment, Chloe's expression hardened. She pulled out her phone and held it up. "Fine. If you're going to be like this and you don't care if I have a good time, then I'll just call Alex. I bet he would be happy to take me." Alex, her ex-boyfriend, the one she claimed was in her past, but whose name she conveniently mentioned whenever things didn't go her way. He was a guy with a vague finance job and a leased German car. In her eyes, he was sophisticated. I was just the guy with grease under his nails who paid the rent for our apartment. The threat was clear. Comply with her wishes or she'd run to the guy she viewed as an alternative. For 2 years, I had tolerated these little games. I had brushed off the subtle jabs about my job, the way she would conveniently forget her wallet when we were out with her friends, the constant assumption that my time and resources were hers to command. In that moment, watching her stand there with that smirk, wielding her ex as a threat, something inside me didn't shatter. It solidified. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the keyring with my spares, and slid one off. It was the key to my old Honda Accord. It was a 20-year-old car I kept for running errands. Nothing fancy, but dependable. I had bought it with cash years ago. It looked rough. The paint was faded, but it ran well. I tossed the key to her. She caught it, looking puzzled. "What is this?" "That's the key to the Honda," I said, turning back to the engine block. "Alex is probably busy. You and your friends can take that. Enjoy." The silence that followed was thick. Her friends exchanged glances, then looked back at her. This was not the reaction she had anticipated. She had expected me to get upset, to beg, to give in. I did none of that. I simply called her bluff and offered her a solution, not the one she wanted. "The Honda," she scoffed. "I'm not driving that embarrassing thing to a concert." "It's that or a ride share," I replied, not looking up. "Your choice." I heard her exhale sharply in frustration. Then I heard her and her friends walk away. A minute later, I heard the unmistakable, slightly tinny sound of the Honda's engine starting up. They were actually taking it. Here's what Chloe and her friends didn't know about that Honda. It was my backup vehicle. And because I sometimes had to park it on the street in a sketchy neighborhood, I had modified it. Years ago, I installed a simple GPS tracker under the dash and wired a remote kill switch to the fuel pump. It was a straightforward anti-theft system. With a tap on an app on my phone, I could see where the car was and shut it down so it wouldn't start again until I reactivated it. I had never needed to use it, but it was there. I had also repeatedly warned Chloe about a specific issue with that car. If the check engine light ever starts flashing, I had cautioned her at least 5 times. It means the secondary fuel filter is getting clogged. You need to pull over immediately and let it sit for an hour. Don't push it, or it will stall out. She always waved me off, saying, Yeah, I get it, car stuff. I returned to working on the charger, feeling a strange sense of tranquility. About an hour later, my curiosity got the better of me. I pulled out my phone and opened the tracking app. The Honda was not at the concert venue. It was parked near a popular bar district halfway there. Then I saw a text from Chloe. Alex flaked. He's not answering. We are stopping for a drink to figure it out. So her big threat, her ex-boyfriend, was just as unreliable as I always suspected. And now she was driving my car, responsible for her friends who had completely abandoned their original plan. They lingered at the bar for over an hour. I watched the dot on my phone's map just sitting there. They were likely complaining about me, about Alex, about how their night was ruined. Finally, the dot started moving again. They were heading toward the concert late, probably annoyed. They got onto the main highway, a long stretch with very few exits. I tracked them for about 10 miles. Then, when they were in the middle of the busiest, most inconvenient section, I opened another app on my phone, the one linked to the fuel pump kill switch, and pressed the deactivate button. I put my phone away and resumed my work. For the next 2 hours, there was silence. I made remarkable progress on the charger. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Chloe. The car just died in the middle of the highway. It won't start. I let a few minutes go by before replying. Did the check engine light start flashing? Her response came instantly. Yes, it has been for the last 10 minutes. What does that mean? I replied. It means you did exactly what I told you not to do. You pushed it too hard when the filter was clogged. She began calling. I ignored it. More texts followed. What do I do? People are honking. It's dangerous. Then Tiffany was calling her dad for help. We have to leave the car here. This is all your fault. I remained silent. An hour later, I received an automated text from the State Highway Patrol informing me that a vehicle registered in my name had been towed from the highway for being an abandoned traffic hazard. 30 minutes after that, my phone rang again. It was Chloe, her voice frantic and high-pitched. Mark, they towed the car. I'm at the tow yard right now, and they're saying it'll cost $300 to get it out. You need to come down here and pay. I took a deep, satisfying breath. No, Chloe, I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. I don't. You were the one driving. You ignored my warnings. It sounds like you have a problem to solve. Let me know how it goes. I hung up the phone. The night was just beginning. Update 1. The 2 days following the concert incident were a lesson in manipulation and blame shifting. After I hung up on Chloe at the tow yard, she must have called me 20 more times. I didn't answer. The voicemails she left were a masterclass in escalation. They began with anger and demands, shifted to tearful pleading, and finally landed on bitter accusations. According to her, I had set her up and ruined her night on purpose. She conveniently forgot that she was the one who issued an ultimatum involving her ex-boyfriend. Her friends joined in too. Tiffany sent me a series of texts labeling me a controlling jerk. My only reply was a simple screenshot of my last text to Chloe, where I reminded her not to drive the car if the check engine light was flashing. Then I blocked Tiffany's number. The real issue for Chloe was the $300 impound fee, plus the daily storage fees that were now accumulating. She didn't have the funds. I knew this because, while our finances were mostly separate, they weren't a complete mystery to me. I managed the major bills for my business account, but she had her own account for personal expenses. I knew she lived paycheck to paycheck, spending most of her money on clothes, lunches, and nights out with her friends. She ultimately got a ride home from the tow yard with her parents, whom she had to call for help. She arrived at our apartment late Sunday afternoon, and the confrontation I had anticipated finally occurred. She didn't start with an apology. She started with rage. You did that on purpose, she yelled as she entered the door. You knew that car would break down. I knew it was a possibility if you ignored my specific instructions, I replied, not moving from the couch where I was reading a magazine. Which is exactly what you did. You left me stranded. Me and my friends on the side of the highway. It was humiliating. That sounds unfortunate, I said, turning a page. Perhaps you should have accepted your ex-boyfriend's offer for a ride. Oh wait, he flaked on you, didn't he? It seems your grand plan had a few holes in it. Her face turned red. The fact that I knew Alex had bailed on her seemed to throw her off more than anything. It stripped away her power. Her threat had been empty, and she realized that I knew it. That's when she made her next mistake. You owe me for that tow fee, and you need to go get that car. I need it for work on Monday. I finally put my magazine down and looked at her. I don't owe you anything, Chloe. And that's my car, not yours. You've shown you can't be trusted with it. You will need to find another way to get to work. This is when things truly took a turn. Her anger dissolved into a desperate, panicked energy that intrigued me. Her reaction was out of proportion to the situation. It was more than just being mad about a ruined night and a tow fee. Something else was happening. After she retreated to the bedroom to give me the silent treatment, I did some digging. Chloe was notoriously careless with her technology. She often used my laptop and would leave her social media accounts logged in. I'm not proud of it, but I felt I needed to understand what was really going on. I opened her messages and found a long conversation thread with Tiffany from the past 2 weeks. They weren't just planning to go to a concert. They were planning to meet up with Alex and his group of friends at an expensive after-party. The plan was for Alex to drive them all night. Chloe's ultimatum to me wasn't a spontaneous threat. It was her plan A. Me driving them was her boring last resort plan B. The messages were full of mocking comments about me. Chloe referred to me as her reliable but boring ride. Tiffany joked about my old truck. They discussed how much more fun Alex was, how he knew all the best places. One message from Chloe stood out. I just have to play it right with Mark. If I act frustrated enough, he will cave. He always does. That single sentence hardened whatever softness was left in me. This wasn't just a simple mistake or a moment of frustration on her part. This was a calculated, disrespectful pattern of behavior. She viewed me as an obstacle to be managed, a tool to be used until a better option came along. The next morning, I woke up before she did. I went into the living room and began to pack. I didn't throw her things in trash bags. I have more respect for myself than that. I found the empty boxes from our last move in the storage closet and carefully, methodically packed all of her belongings. Her clothes, her shoes, her ridiculous collection of makeup, everything. I stacked the sealed boxes neatly by the front door. I also went to the bank as soon as it opened. I had a small joint savings account with her that we had opened for emergencies. It had about $5,000 in it, most of which was my money. I withdrew $4,000, leaving her with the $1,000 she had contributed, and closed the account. When she woke up and saw the boxes, her face went pale. "What is this? What are you doing?" "I'm finishing what you started," I said, handing her a printed copy of her messages with Tiffany. "You seem to have a plan for a life that doesn't involve me. I'm just helping you get there faster." She read the pages, her hands trembling. For the first time, she had no comeback, no accusation, no threat. She just stood there completely exposed. "You need to find somewhere else to stay, Chloe," I said. "Your things are ready to go. You can call your parents or your friends, or you could even call Alex. Maybe he can give you a ride." She just stared at me, her eyes filled with a mix of shock and, for the first time, fear. The power dynamic had shifted completely. She had played a game, assuming I would stick to my old role. She had no idea I was capable of flipping the entire board over. The ball was now in her court, but she was standing in a tow yard with no money, and all her belongings were in boxes at the feet of a man who had finally decided he was done playing. Final update. It has been 3 months since the night of the concert. The fallout from that weekend wasn't loud and explosive, but a slow, grinding chain of consequences that Chloe set in motion herself. After I packed her boxes, she didn't call Alex, she called her parents. Her father, a man I've always found to be reasonable, showed up a few hours later. He tried to play the mediator to smooth things over. When he walked in, saw the neatly stacked boxes and the printouts of the text messages I had left on the kitchen counter, his demeanor changed. He asked to speak to me alone in the garage. He didn't yell, he just looked tired. "Mark," he said, "did you know she maxed out the credit card we gave her for emergencies? We just got the bill, over $4,000 in the last 2 months. We had to pay it off to keep it from hurting her credit." I shook my head. "No, sir, I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised." He sighed. "She's always been like this. Expects the world, but doesn't want to do the work. I had hoped you were a steadying influence on her." "I tried to be," I told him, "but I can't be a partner to someone who sees me as a stepping stone." He nodded and helped her load her boxes into his car. He shook my hand before leaving and said what sounded like a genuine, "I'm sorry, Mark." Chloe didn't say a word. She just got in the car, and they drove away. The next phase of the drama was the smear campaign. Chloe and Tiffany posted vague things on social media about men trying to control you and the importance of escaping toxic situations. A few of their friends sent me angry messages. I didn't respond to any of them. I just focused on my work. The truth has a way of surfacing. As for the car, the old Honda sat in the impound lot for another week. The bill was climbing daily. Chloe called me one last time begging me to retrieve it. She insisted it was my car, my responsibility. "You're right," I told her. "It is my car." I went down to the tow yard, paid the nearly $800 in fees, and had the car towed back to my shop. Chloe apparently found out I had retrieved it because she sent me a text demanding I give it to her. I replied, "The car is in my name." The tow fees and the original purchase price were paid by me. We have nothing further to discuss about it. 2 weeks later, the full story began to leak out, primarily through her father, who was no longer covering for her. He told his side of the family about her secret credit card debt and the real reason she had to move back home. The narrative of me being a controlling monster quickly fell apart when people realized she had been financially irresponsible and deeply disrespectful. The real justice, however, was quieter. Alex, the ex-boyfriend, apparently heard about the drama. He actually had the nerve to send me a message on social media. "Heard you and Chloe are done. Her loss, man." I just replied, "She's all yours. Good luck." Then I blocked him. According to her father, Alex stopped answering Chloe's calls about a week after she moved back home. He enjoyed being the exciting alternative, but had no interest in solving her real-world problems. What happened to Chloe? She's still living with her parents. Without my income covering our shared rent and utilities, and with her own paycheck going toward the debt she owes her father, her lifestyle has changed dramatically. No more expensive lunches, no more new clothes every week. She had to get a second job, working retail on the weekends. For the first time in her adult life, she's being forced to live within her means, and she's miserable. And what about me? I'm doing better than ever. The peace and quiet in my apartment is something I hadn't realized I was missing so much. I finished the 69 charger project, and the client was so thrilled, he gave me a huge bonus and 2 new restoration projects. My business is thriving. As for the old Honda, I spent a weekend working on it. I flushed the fuel system, replaced the clogged filter, and gave it a full tune-up. I cleaned it inside and out. It still looks like an old beater on the outside, but it runs perfectly. I didn't sell it. It has become a symbol for me, a reminder that sometimes the things people overlook, the things they call embarrassing or see as just a utility, are actually the most dependable things in your life. It's a reminder that I'm not a backup plan. Last week, I drove it out to the coast. I had the windows down, the engine humming along. My phone didn't ring once. It was just me, a reliable old car, and the open road. And I've never felt more free.